and welcome. Welcome to That's the Law. I'm BJ Krintzman. I'm an attorney in Newton, and we are coming to you. I usually say now we're coming to you live, but we're coming to you on Zoom because the new TV studios have been basically closed because of the pandemic, but we're kind of getting used to doing the shows on Zoom. It's really been very successful. And as my viewers know, I have dedicated the season to try to take back the Senate and dump Trump. But tonight we're going to go totally nonpartisan because we have someone from City Hall with us. And I am thrilled. So nonpartisan show here. And I am thrilled with our guest. We have David Olson with us, who is the clerk of the city of Newton. David,
Hi, BJ.
welcome. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you. And
Good to
by the
see
way, I had thought your name was David Olson, but it turns out that your name is David Olson. He's such a great guy because no matter who I told that I said, I'm having David Olson on the show, said, oh, he's a great guy. So I think it just goes together.
Well, thank you.
And of course, and my son Josh, who know Josh, and he's on the city council. He was thrilled that I was having you on the show. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to come to us. We're actually doing this show on September, what's today, the 24th or 25th?
24th.
24th. And so we are between what were the primary elections and what's coming up. David, thanks for coming. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background and how you got to be where you are?
Sure. Well, I think for most city and town clerks that you talk to in Massachusetts, it was not on our radar screen before we got the job. It's not something that you sort of study for or to want to become. My background, I started actually with the city of Newton at the Newton History Museum as the director of the museum, and had worked in museums for a number of years before that. When I came to Newton, I was with the Jackson Homestead, the Newton History Museum, for about 4 years when my predecessor in the city clerk's office, Ed English, decided to retire. And they put a call out asking for people to apply, and I applied for the position. It sounded very fascinating to me, and still took advantage of some of my talents as a history museum director, in that I oversee the city archives here for the city as well. So it just seemed like a very good fit. What still surprises me every day is that when the city was founded in 18 something, I'm only the 8th person to serve as city clerk for the city. Ed English called me number 8 and I called him number 7. It was great. It's a fun position, and people who are in it stay in it for a while.
It's like being a lifer, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And about 14 years, how long have you been the city clerk?
I've been the city clerk for 16 years, and I worked down at the museum for 4 years before that. So in February, I'll celebrate 20 years with the city.
Great. Well, congratulations, and thanks for all you do for us.
Thank you.
So of course, I did a little bit of homework, and the work of the clerk's office is really, you're the keeper of the records for the city. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, yes.
Right. So if you want any kind of license or any kind of, and it's a birth to death experience. It's birth certificates, it's marriage license, it's burial, death certificates, burial, permits, correct?
Correct. We have all that.
And in case you buy a dog along the way from birth to death, that's where you get the dog license.
Dog license, yes.
Right. So, but also the business certificates for businesses that want to do business in the city.
Right.
And you also keep the city council records.
We do, and I help the city council, that's my staff and I, to get their meetings scheduled, to get people in to be confirmed, or to talk at a city council meeting. It is a job that requires a lot of support from a variety of people to make sure that we are getting the council what they need to do their jobs, to make sure that the residents are getting what they need to get their business licenses or their birth certificates, their death certificates, those kinds of things. And of course, also to vote. We are also responsible for elections.
Well, and also before we get to the voting, but you're the folks who run the census. So when we get that thing every January 2nd comes in the
Yes,
mail
yes.
to say
That
whether
comes from my office, and that is a key piece actually in keeping your voter registration active.
okay.
And is an important piece, and not only for census information for the city, but also for the voters of the city to keep active as a registered voter.
Right. This is great. So we're talking to David Olson, clerk of the city of Newton. And all of that you said, not that it wasn't interesting, because it was, but it's not why we brought you here today.
Yes,
You are here because you are also the chief official in charge of elections for the city of Newton.
that is correct.
And
Yes.
if ever there was a year when this was major, this is major. So actually, I wanted to begin by asking, I thought of it a little bit as a test run doing the primaries.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And how did that go?
It went well. We had 27,000 people vote by mail in September. Another 6,000 either voted early in person or at the polls on election day. That's very different from what we would normally see at an election. Usually for an election of that type, we might get 1,000 mailed in ballots and everybody else just shows up at the election. But the way the state legislature structured it this year, they provided the opportunity for people to do a mailed ballot, but also for the primary to do early voting in person. And then we kept all of our polling locations open on election day as well.
I think you said 27,000 and another 6,000 or something. So
Yes,
that's 33,000.
right.
How many registered voters are there and how does that compare with past years?
Sure. We just have over 60,000 registered voters. So it's about 50% of the voters voted in the primary. Usually we are lucky to see 25% of the voters vote in the
Wow.
primary. So it really was a huge bonus that people felt comfortable and wanted to vote. And were
Right.
able to do that via the mail.
So Newton, fasten your seatbelts because that was just the primary and we're heading towards the elections. So I'm going to sort of do this in a sort of a chronological fashion, which is we'll begin with how can people know if they are registered to vote?
Sure. There's a variety of ways of doing that, but the easiest way to do that is to actually go to the city's website to www.newtonma.gov and under governments, choose elections. And there is a button right at the top of the page that says, am I registered to vote? And you can look up online whether you are registered to vote and find out whether that's the first major step that you need to accomplish to be able to vote in November is you need to be registered. And if you're not registered and you have a Massachusetts driver's license, you can register online. You don't even need to come into the city clerk's office.
And in preparation for the show, I went on the website and there is a block the size of my head on the website that says 2020, election. So it's very easy to get right into the election information that
Yes.
you're looking for. So if somebody just isn't registered to vote and they want to register to vote, what are the requirements?
So you must be 18 years of age and a US citizen to register to vote. And again, if you have a Massachusetts driver's license, you can do it online. If you don't have a driver's license, you can get the forms online and then mail them into us here at City Hall. You don't have to come down. We can get you registered so that you can vote in November. There is a deadline to register to vote, and right now it is 10 days before the election. So you have to be registered by October 27th, I believe the day is. It's a Saturday. As long as you are registered by then, you can vote.
So we talked about the primary elections, when we started the show. And did you run into any problems that you're looking to address right now to make sure they don't happen for the actual elections?
Well, it's the problems. There weren't really problems, but there were some challenges that we had to overcome in September. And again, I spoke about just the sheer number of ballots that we had to mail out. For November, we already know that we're going to have to mail 30,000 ballots out at this point. but applications are still coming in. People are still requesting them. So I'm sure that number is going to go up. And as soon as we get the ballots from the state, we're going to get them in the mail and get them out to people. One of the things that we are encouraging people to do is that if you get your ballot in early October, you can put it right back in the mail and mail it back to us. And there's probably not going to be a problem with it getting back to us. But as we get closer to Election Day, if you have not mailed your ballot back, we are suggesting that you bring it down here to City Hall and drop it into one of the drop boxes, and don't rely on the US Postal Service to get it back to us.
Right. Right now we're talking about voting by mail.
Yes.
Is the category we're in. And we've discussed how you can get a ballot, which is you register that you want that online,
Yep.
or you can come into City Hall.
You can come. We've got the forms actually in the hallway outside my office. You don't even have to come into the office, and you can get those and do that at City Hall. But you can also do it online. You can ask for a ballot to be mailed to you. Again, go to our website, to that block that you pointed out, go to the elections page, and there is a vote by mail button. Click on that, and as long as you're a registered voter, you can request a ballot be mailed to you online.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you will get those ballots out once you get them from,
Yes.
Is it Secretary Galvin's office?
Secretary Galvin's office, yeah.
Right. Okay. So when do I know, an individual voter in the town of Newton, when do I know whether I didn't get my ballot? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
when
right.
should I expect it by?
So we are expecting at this point delivery from the Secretary of the State's office on October 5th. So that first week of October, if you haven't gotten your ballot by the end of that week, the first thing you should do, again, is go to the website. We have a Track My Ballot feature, or the Secretary of the Commonwealth has Track My Ballot. You can go on there and you can see if we have mailed it out or not.
Oh, okay.
It will tell you right now, if we've got an application on file for you, it will say pending for the November 3rd election. When that ballot is mailed, it will then give you the date that we mailed it. And you can keep track of when we received it back, and just know that your ballot has been mailed and that we've received it back.
Right. Okay. So, and mine says pending.
Yes.
Because I went on yesterday, and mine says pending, which means I want one. You'll be getting it to me, and there it is. And
Yes.
we also have that website, the Track My Ballot. It's actually Track My Ballot MA, Track My Ballot Massachusetts .com. And it's very user friendly. You only have to know sort of your name and address.
Yep.
No heavy lifting, no tough questions.
Not at all.
You can track it after you voted to see where it is. And that was something I wanted to ask you about, because there are certain jurisdictions that the rule is postmarked by, and then there are others that it is received by.
Right.
And I'd like you to discuss the type of jurisdiction that Newton is.
Sure. Well, it's going to be the same for all of Massachusetts. And in September, the September primary was different from what we're going to be doing in November here in Massachusetts. In September, you had to have your ballot into my office by the close of polls on Election Day. In November, the law's been written that you need to have that ballot postmarked by Election Day, and we have to receive it within 3 days after the election. So, if you get it, again, I wouldn't wait until Election Day to put it in the mail. It probably won't get to us within that 3-day window. But for those that may have gotten it into the mail the week before, if it doesn't make it here right on Election Day, there's still a couple of other days for it to get here.
So, we talked before about Track My Ballot, ma.com, and I went on there and I voted by mail in the primary. And when I look at how my primary ballot did, it was mailed on September 12th and was received on September 24th.
So that actually to August you were talking about then.
I'm sorry, August.
Yes.
So it took it took 12 days from the time I thought I had sent in my ballot until it got to you.
Yes, yeah. Though unfortunately here in Newton, all of our mail, when we mail it out, it has to go into Boston to be
Right,
sorted and processed and then comes back to Newton.
right.
So it is taking a good week for mail to actually get from City Hall to people's homes. And then the same thing happens in the other direction. It's got to go into Boston first before it comes back to us. They aren't able to keep it in Newton.
Now, let's just talk a little bit about the process of getting these mailed in ballots, which is some states do not allow any officials to touch a ballot until the polls close.
Yes.
And my understanding that Massachusetts, you're allowed to open, register, and verify that the ballot, and then it gets counted late. It gets counted after the polls close. Is that right?
That's not quite right. Here in
Well, David,
Massachusetts,
don't correct me on my show. Okay.
you were close, but it wasn't quite right. Jay, it's here in Massachusetts. For these two elections, the September and the November election, it's only been authorized for these two. We are allowed to do it, one of two things, either what's called advanced tabulation or central tabulation on election day. So any of these mailed in ballots, we can open the envelope, we can put the ballot through a ballot tabulator,
Right.
but we can't run a report until the polls close at the end of the election. So we can run all of those ballots through, they will get counted, but we won't know what the results are until the polls close. Then we can run, so it's called running the Ender card through our machines, and we will get a complete count of every ballot that came in.
I thought that's what I said, but if you're saying that isn't what I said, then
That
I
isn't
didn't
quite
say
what
it.
you said. We don't have to wait until the end of the election to
Oh,
get those tabulated.
oh,
We can
okay,
get
all right.
those run through the machines ahead of time.
I was going to say picky, but that's exactly what I want you to be. Is
Yeah.
you're the guy we're relying on, right? To get it all right. The estimates that I read, I think it was in the New York Times, is that 4 in 10 votes will be cast in person this year. Just 4 in 10. And by the way, it's also estimated that a disproportionate number of Democrats will vote by mail. Would you just contrast the difference? Is there a difference between vote by mail and absentee ballot?
In terms of the process, really, there is no difference. However, in Massachusetts Constitution, absentee voting is outlined, and it does not give the reason, as a pandemic is in place, as a reason why you can vote absentee. There's very specific reasons for requesting and getting an absentee ballot, and unfortunately, a pandemic is not one of them. So that's why this special legislation was put into place, and vote by mail, so that we could deal with COVID-19 and the pandemic at the same time.
All right, so we've talked about voting by mail. Then there's another, and the bottom line is when you're expected to get your ballot probably in the first, second week in October.
Yes.
And when you get it, send it in.
Send it
Mail
back.
it in just so that you don't have to deal with any worries about the postal service or any delays, correct?
Correct. And if you are worried about the post office, just bring it down here to City Hall. We have 2 drop boxes outside the front door of City Hall for your ballots to go in. Leave it there, and we will be able to bring it right into the city clerk's office.
By the way, did you see I had sent you an email saying, why don't you have those? It's a handleless mailbox. There are some that just have like a spout that comes out, and a little slit, and you put the thing in so that people don't even have to touch it. But did those not exist yet?
We have not purchased them here for Newton at this point. We are using the equipment that we already had. Again, at this point, it was just authorized for 2 elections only. So, if this continues on into the future, we may be doing something different into next year and into future elections.
So now let's talk about voting early. This is
Yes,
another option, Newton. You can vote early. And the dates that I have are you can start voting on October 17th through
correct.
October 30th.
That is correct. And all of that voting will take place at the Newton Free Library just across the street from City Hall. We will be in the Drucker Auditorium within the library. And on the weekends, the polling locations will be open from 10 to 4 p.m. And during the weekdays, Monday through Friday, it'll be open from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Right. So there is absolutely no excuse for not voting this year. Not, and will there be social distancing observed there and in terms of lines, or I presume you're having it in the Drucker Auditorium so that it's a big space
Yes.
where you can socially distance.
Yes, and we will definitely be doing social distancing again. We've got the the polling booths spread out across the space. We have got people who are checking in spread out, and our poll workers are all wearing protective equipment. So whether they are definitely wearing face masks, and you may see some with face shields on as well, just to make sure that everybody is safe.
Safe. Great. Then there's your old fashioned way. You can actually vote in person on
On
election day,
on election
correct?
day, and we will have all of our polling locations open. We have had to move a couple because of COVID-19.
Right.
For those locations that were in senior housing facilities, we've moved them out for these elections. And we are in the process of moving from the Family Access Center in Ward 3. It has daycare going on during this time, and they have asked us to find a different location. So we are working on finding a new location for family access. But every other location, it's your normal location. That's where you need to go to vote on election day. So if you've gotten, you've gotten your ballot but haven't returned it, and you have a choice of either bringing it down to City Hall and putting it in our drop box, or if it's more convenient for you to go to your polling location on election day, go there and vote, and then just tear up your mailed ballot. You can only vote once. If you've returned it by mail, they will know that at the polling location. Your checkbox in the voter list will already be checked off that we've received your ballot. So you can't vote twice. But if you haven't returned the ballot, and it's easier to get to your polling location than it is to get down here to City Hall, you have that choice.
Right. And I would recommend that people check on the city's website, which again, we'll post that, to make sure where their polling place is, because I know that mine changed. Mine was the Little Wobbin Library, and it's over at Zervis School now.
Yes.
So and people who are so nervous about going out to begin with, I think would like to know just that they're going to the correct place, and they just have to, limit the amount of time that they're going to spend.
Right.
And that's
Correct.
also on the city's website.
That is on the city's website. For those that we changed before the September primary, we mailed a card to every household saying, your polling place has changed. And for those that vote at the Family Access Center on Waltham Street, as soon as we've determined where you're going to be, you'll get a postcard from us saying that your polling location has changed as well.
You can vote by mail. You can vote early. You can vote at the polls on election day. There's so many ways to do this. And I want to now sort of get into your side of things, which is how are you staffing all this? Gearing up for what we're expecting is the largest election historically, maybe ever.
Definitely. And it does require a lot of people to do this. We have hired 3 additional election clerks here in the office. We hired them before September. They'll work with us right through the November election to help us here at the office to get all of these ballots put into envelopes and labeled and mailed out. Those 30,000 ballots that we need to do, that we're hoping to get done within a week. We are relying on poll workers to help us out. They're going to come in during the day and in the evening to help us get those envelopes labeled, to get those ballots out the door. And then once we get them out the door, they start coming back. And so we also need to register that they've come back to us so that you can track your ballot on Track My Ballot. So,
Right.
we shift from putting labels on envelopes to scanning barcodes of ballots that have been returned back to us. So,
Right. And again, you can check on Track My Ballot Mass MA to see that you voted and that your vote has been recorded. In terms of poll workers, are you making any special efforts to nationwide anyway? 58% of the nation's poll workers are 61 years or older.
yes.
And they're in a higher risk category. So are you making any effort to look for younger poll workers this year?
We have, and we had some younger poll workers for September, and we have gotten a huge response to our request for poll workers this time around. And we've actually don't need any more poll workers at this point. We have got all the people that we need. And so thanks to everybody who has sent in an application, let us know they want to do it. We have gotten many of you scheduled, but we may not be able to use everybody because we've just gotten such a great response to it.
All right, well, that's good to hear. Keep the list though, because if poll workers get sick, you'll pardon me, you kind of
We
need some
definitely
backups here.
do. Yeah.
Actually, last little issue, and then we're out of time,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you about voter fraud.
Mhm.
Every time this comes up, what we hear from reliable news sources is this is not a problem in the United States. It has never been a problem. Is it a problem in your experience or in Newton?
It is not a problem, and it's not been a problem here in Massachusetts, and especially in Newton. For the process that we have, you are being checked multiple times during the process. When you send in your application, we check to make sure you're a registered voter. You're signing that you are requesting a ballot. When the ballot gets mailed back to you, you have to return it to us in a signed envelope saying that you are who you are and this is your ballot. And again, we check that when it comes back into us here at City Hall. And if you show up at the polls on election day, if you've returned a ballot already, it will already be checked off in the book that you have returned one, and you can't vote twice. So there are a lot of checks and balances here in Massachusetts, and I am not worried about voter fraud.
Great. That is very reassuring. All people want is to know that if they have the right to vote, they can vote, and that their vote is going to get counted. And it's very reassuring. I'm thrilled to have met you because it's I feel very reassured that you're running this. You have a lot of experience. You said, was it 14 years, 16 years, 16
now.
years you've been doing this. So it's very reassuring to have you doing this. So is there one last quick question? Anything you need from us? Anything you need from voters, or just are we okay?
You guys are okay, and I just want to reiterate that if you are going to be voting by mail and you are thinking or waiting to send your ballot back, don't wait for the mail. Bring it down here to City Hall. Get it into our drop box so that we can get your vote counted.
Thank you so much. During the busiest time of your life, probably, you took out time to come on That's the Law. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're
It
very
was a
welcome.
thrill meeting you, and thank you for your service to the city.
It was a
thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time on That's the Law.